Hello, everyone. I hope that all is well with you. I first like to start by saying thanks to all of my new subscribers. I really appreciate the love and the support. If there's any topic that you'd like me to discuss, just send me an email at jconstance1908 at yahoo.com. Well, today's topic is just singleness. And I was just thinking about this last night. My journey into my singleness, my journey into accepting myself, my journey into being okay with actually being by myself and learning to love myself and accept myself. So, just gonna tell you a little story. So, I remember back 10 years ago, I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. I was excited about life. Matter of fact, I had a boyfriend that lived with me for probably about 6 weeks. We didn't live together long. We were just young and crazy. And after that, I was completely alone. After, completely lived alone. And, you know, um, I can say that it's been an interesting and wonderful journey. And I can honestly say that when I first got out on my own, I wasn't used to being by myself so much. When I was at home, I was with my family. When I was in college, I always had a roommate. I always had friends. I was a part of a sorority. And I moved to a new place, and I didn't really know too many people, but I always had my best friend there. She lived in Greensboro. And so, just navigating in life on my own, inside of myself, because I didn't know who I was, I experienced a lot of loneliness. And for me, loneliness drove me to eat. And sometimes I was dating, but I would date somebody and I knew they weren't right for me, so I had to let the situation go. And it could just being alone, being feeling lonely. It's a feeling. Living a single life is your existence, is a way of being. And I could just say that I had to learn how to love me. I honestly think in this life that you should be your own best friend. Love and respect your family members and your friends, but be your own best friend. But it was a journey for me. And I'm going to be honest with you, it wasn't easy. I remember going to work, and you have all those hours by yourself. You come home, and I turned to food. And I didn't know like how to handle this or how to deal with just being by myself. And also thing is too, I also turned to writing. So I turned to food, and anytime that I felt alone or lonely, I would always eat. And then it became a problem. I was always a large person, but I became extremely obese, like almost nearly 500 pounds, because of this void that needed to be filled within myself because I was feeling lonely. But what I come to realize is that we all need to experience difficulties, but we should always turn to the Lord. We should always turn to Jesus. We should always turn to the Word. God fills in those holes in your life. He fills in that lonely space, that brokenness, whatever you're feeling. He fills that up. And if you're quiet long enough, he will indeed speak to you. But it took me a long time to actually want to listen to him. The funny thing about it is, I was always asking God, please speak to me, Lord. Please tell me, what I'm here for. A part of the loneliness, too, was not really knowing what I was here for. So when you don't feel like you have a purpose in life, sometimes you feel like life can be meaningless. But because we're breathing, we have a purpose. And God puts that purpose in your life when you're open to the things of the Lord and you make God first. He makes, and a lot of times, to be honest with you, you're thinking your purpose is one thing when God has a bigger and better purpose for you. So it's always about submitting to the will of God. But I carried on with my bad eating habits. If nobody was there on a Friday night, I could just remember. It's not like I was I was eating a lot, but it wasn't like I was binging. So it wasn't like I was ordering 3 or 4 cheeseburgers or something. It's just that I was eating too much and I wasn't exercising. And I can remember my Friday nights watching movies. I can remember just this numbness. It was like this big void in my heart that I felt like, why am I here? And what am I supposed to do? And around this time, I was experiencing a lot of depression. And and I always said to myself, I was like, I need to lose weight. I need to lose weight. But I just thought that because I was so big, it was hard for me to grasp that I could lose 200 pounds or that I could lose a certain amount of weight. But it eventually did happen because when you set your mind to something, you will indeed do it. But I want to venture back off into the feelings of loneliness. So throughout the years, I got into writing after my relationship with an ex-boyfriend, Ryan, who lived with me for a brief time when I first moved to Charlotte. We were college sweethearts, and that helped me. God gave me purpose because writing poetry, I had a passion for it. I was vibrant about it, and I started going and speaking, and I would go by myself. The one thing about me that I love is that I never was afraid to step out and just do something radical and just figure things out. And that's not the only thing I love, but that's just like something I really enjoy about myself. Just not having any inhibitions in the weirdest and awkward situations. So I would go out and I would speak, and I would also develop relationships with the people at the poetry lounge. And I met my best friend there, one of my best friends, Nikki, at the wind up as it was back in the day. And through writing, I had a purpose, and then from there, people started asking me to come speak. But let me just go back around to the loneliness. So, nothing could fulfill the void. Food couldn't fulfill the void. I was never like a drunk, but I would drink wine. Drinking could never fulfill the void. And yeah, even vodka sometimes. Hanging out with my friends, being out in the world. And I just remember coming home to myself and just not being happy. And I'm making this video to just say that before we go out and venture out into trying to develop other relationships, be happy with yourself. And peace and love and happiness with self is definitely obtainable. And so, to make a long story short, throughout the years, I decided, since no one wasn't there, I would have friends in my life here, but like I said, I spent most of the time alone, and I would even date. But it was never long-term relationships like my 2 long relationships in college and the ones in high school. And so I started to say, well, if I call somebody sometimes and, oh, no, we can't go to the movies, I started to go to the movies by myself. And that was a big thing for me. And then I started to go out to eat by myself. I'm like, cool. I'm like, oh, I like this chick. I like her. She's kind of cool. And then I started to go on trips by myself. And then I started to just hang out a lot by myself. And I was learning Constance. I was learning to like me. And I love shopping by myself. It's nothing like feeling like you can go to any store you want to and you don't have to worry about what other, how long somebody else wants to look at something. And throughout this time, the feelings of the daunting feeling of being alone, because most of us women, men, we want to be coupled up, we want to be married, we want to procreate, especially being in the Lord and in the Word. That's part of our destiny. That's part of part of the reason why we're here. And I just remember just saying to myself, like, I'm feeling better. And there would be times that I would feel worse and times that I would feel happy. And it was like a balancing act. And then when I went on the weight loss journey, it became more clear for me. And I spent a long time just balancing being okay with being alone and then struggling with it. But now I can honestly say I'm at a peace with it. I'm at a peaceful state, and that's why I'm making this video, because it was a journey. It wasn't easy, and dealing with your feelings and your emotions, and dealing with, not going to the refrigerator every time you feel a sense of loneliness, not dating this guy or calling this person just because you want somebody to talk to on the phone. Learning there's so much power and beauty in your singleness. In the world, people would often, you're not married by a certain date. People sometimes think that you're like, what's wrong with you? You're beautiful, or you're this, or you're that. And what I want to say to people that are alone, don't focus on a specific date or time to be married in life. I used to think that I needed to be married by 25. And don't worry about the world's perception of relationships, because God has a whole nother perception, and God's way in truth is the only way. And you can kind of be discouraged when you're out here in the world and you listen to the statistics and you listen to the back and forth between women and men, and the separation and all the groups and the and people being feminists and all these different things. But single people, don't be discouraged about your singleness. It's a blessing and not a curse. It's a lesson. It's so much beauty in that. And I believe that God gives us these times alone to develop and cultivate us and show us how to be strong and independent and full within ourselves. I just want to say that it's beauty. I could go on and talk about the different trials and tribulations that I've had throughout this journey of singleness. But just in recent years and months that I've came to the realization that it's beautiful, it's peaceful. And when you have that relationship with God and you have that relationship with yourself, it's a beautiful thing. Your happiness shouldn't be contingent upon the world or anything outside of it, outside of yourself in the Lord. And even when that mate comes into your life, you can't depend on them or necessarily expect them to make you happy. You already have to be whole and at peace. So if you are a single person and you're dealing with loneliness, I challenge you to get into the Word of God. I challenge you to understand what God says about you and who you are and what He says that He has set aside for you. And I also challenge you to free yourself up. Sometimes we think life is more complicated than it is. No, if there's something that you want to do, dare to venture out and do it. If you want to go to, I've taken trips by myself, I've gone to concerts by myself, I've done a lot by myself, and I've had fun. I never was sitting there thinking like, oh gosh, I'm by myself. I was just in the moment. I was just present, and I was happy. And it's just part of life, learning how to deal with yourself and love yourself. And it's not an easy battle. For it wasn't an easy battle for me. Let's say someone else may have a different struggle or a different thing that they go through. I had to deal with and confront the things that made me, why I felt lonely, why I felt like my self-worth was low, why I felt all these different feelings inside. And I had to challenge myself and challenge those thoughts and know what God had said and know what God thought about me. And when you understand how God perceives you, your perception of yourself will be much better. So just wanted to say that there's beauty in being singleness. Take that block off your mind and end your singleness. Don't be focused about what the world around you is telling you. Don't be focused on what you see in the magazines and on television and what they say a relationship is. You want to know about relationships and love? Get into the Word and understand what He's saying about you. And be okay and at peace with loving yourself. Be okay and at peace with developing your relationship with yourself, with working through things that that you haven't gotten through yet. And it's just going to be much better when you get in a relationship. You're going to be so much more at a peaceful state and at a happiness with yourself. You won't just accept anything that comes your way, and you'll understand your value and your worth. And you'll know that no one else outside of yourself can make you valuable except for the Lord in heaven. And what you already know what he says about you. So I just wanted to pass on some words of wisdom, words of kindness. There's so much beauty in being single. Take time and enjoy your day. Surely it's gonna come a day where you're gonna have kids calling your name because you're their mother, or you're gonna have kids calling your name because you're their father, and you're gonna be like, man, I wish I would have went to that extra, event when I was single or whatever. You're still gonna love that, interaction. You're gonna love your family, but enjoy and seize the moment right now. Singleness is beautiful. Love and respect yourself and make wise and great choices. Make the most out of life. Enjoy each moment. Be a blessing and make sure that you're paying attention to the lessons that God has before you. Take care. Be blessed.